fake breathing.
Doing some.
It's like some serious breathing happening. Why would you do that? Seriously, what are we talking about, Paul?
Some ASMR there.
Hey, Paul, take your headphones off for a second.
Why would you do that?
Debuting a new theme song, so...
I'm all about that Christ, no devil. I'm all about that Christ, Yeah, it's pretty clear. The devil's a pile of poo. But he can't...
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Divinely Uninspired Podcast, the podcast from Journey Church, and that was All About That Christ from YouTube. And
how do we get away with using that?
Well, because I don't think that's copyrighted. How did that lady get away with using it?
That's true.
I mean, it's parody, and I think parody laws, if you ask Weird Al, he's made quite a living off, clever parodies of big music. And I'm sorry for letting it play so long. I really wanted to get to the great lyric of, the devil's a pile of poo.
Yeah.
And man, Addie was so embarrassed. She was embarrassed for this woman. She was embarrassed for the Meghan Trainor, whose song was, taken apart with that. So it's probably not going to be our permanent theme song, but boy, I've got a website this week of the top 10 cringiest Christian parody songs, and that was high up there. There's also the Real Sin Savior to the tune of the Real Slim Shady. It was
that's good.
It was pretty rough too. Whoa, it was pretty bad. So
do you pull up to like the carpool line with that blaring?
I like to pull up to hey, let's not give out your doxing my kids. I like to pull up in the line like Jeremy pulls up to the hotel in Atlanta with get some 2 Chainz going. And
I do that in the mornings. I do 90s hip hop in the morning when I drop my daughter off, and she's always so embarrassed. But the people that in the drop off line love me.
Oh, I love it. Addie might really enjoy it. Last night she's all she knows is 90s music for the most part. It's real sad. And she knew all the words to Wonderwall, which was really interesting.
Which they're back together.
They are.
Oasis, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, the voices, speaking of back together, we've got Jeremy.
Yeah.
Yep, that's Jeremy.
He's paying attention.
He is playing Bejeweled 2, I think, on his computer.
No, I'm looking up something, but it's
okay.
for the podcast.
Wait, there you go. He's doing research.
That's amazing.
And that lovely voice is Penny.
Hi.
All right. Man, this is going to be a long slog of a listen this week, everybody, so stay tuned. All right, well, so I had some terrible news Sunday in this back room, and it came from one of our younger people who do things here, Natalie, who apparently is a child. And I want to ask, and I asked this question and it got real bad answers, of how many spaces do you all put after a period when you start a new sentence when you type?
None.
2.
What?
You put none?
Oh, 1. Just 1 space.
I do
was
2.
like, I thought you meant
listen
like
to
before
who's
the period.
hip over there, Penny.
I do too.
Yeah, I do too as well. And that is a
What?
sign of age because...
Do you put any spaces before
Before period?
Before a period? Why would I put a space before
I mean,
the period?
people do that.
Penny, your papers must be impossible to get through. There's no spaces after. There's a space before the period. What are you talking about?
No.
All right, into the sentence. Okay, so...
whatever.
So you end a sentence, you hit the space bar.
No, I don't want to bring up who actually does that. But yeah, I know somebody that does.
Okay, well, shots fired at that person, I guess. But what are you... So you put a single space?
Yeah.
Is that how you were raised?
I don't know. I just kind of did that. I don't remember being taught to put 2.
Oh, well, I for sure was taught to put 2. And
Would you learn on like a typewriter or something?
Well, okay.
I'll say this, though. Sometimes when I'm writing emails and I know this isn't proper, if I put a period, the next sentence is on a different line. Because I feel like in emails, like if everybody just writes like huge paragraphs.
Bullet points.
Yeah, so I almost do bullet points when I write emails. Like I'll do a sentence, and then even though like if I was writing a paper, I would just keep going. In an email, I would go ahead and just do a whole new line and then do the next sentence.
Yeah.
I feel like it's easier to read that way.
I appreciate that as a person who gets emails that looks nice and clean. It came up because we were putting the Bible verses onto the slides, and we were making it look, presentable. And I thought about it because it comes from the 2 spaces was from a typewriter. But when we took keyboarding classes back in the 1900s to type and learn how to use a computer, 2 spaces, that was the industry standard. And now it's 1 because you don't, it's all
I don't remember ever doing 2.
Well,
ever.
You probably got credit taken off. And what was it?
I mean, I can't remember. I'm like thinking of using the keyboard right now and then double hitting the space bar.
Well,
double hit. It just doesn't make any sense, y'all.
Well, I mean, if we're getting in ways, doubles.
Do you really do that when you type? Use 2 spaces after
I do.
period?
Now I feel like I'm old.
Yeah.
Don't do it on LinkedIn. You won't get hired.
But like I said, most of the stuff I write now, I just go ahead and do a new line. I don't like paragraphs. Like I just I think an email should be under a paragraph.
Okay.
So I'll just do 4 lines, and then when I'm writing like sermons and stuff, because it's easier to read, I don't do paragraphs either. So every sentence in a sermon is a new line because it's easier for me to read versus a paragraph. It's like hard to,
I like every new verse. When we put it on there, I separate them so it's easy with the thoughts on there. I have a question for Penny though. If you don't mind, where did you go to high school?
Went to Mail.
Mail. Okay. Is that where? So you have, I noticed this week during our meeting, Jeremy, when you write, if you were, I wish we had a pencil here. What finger do you rest your pen on when you write?
My middle one.
Yeah. Where do you put your finger, Penny, when you write?
I don't know. I need to hold a pen.
Okay. Well, here, hang on real quick. You guys talk amongst yourself because I'm going to get a pen and I'm going to blow Jeremy's mind.
Were you like watching me or something? And,
do you not hold a pen right?
I'm left-handed, so I might hold it
that has nothing to do with it at all. That you're left-handed versus.
What is this?
No, that is.
What's wrong with this?
No. Okay. I don't have.
I'm confused how you would hold it.
Like that. Yes.
What? No.
Why would you? Yes, you use your pointer finger as your brace.
That's probably why your all's handwriting.
I don't know.
Looks like trash.
Okay. Well, I was watching you write.
Pen. Throw that pen down here. Can you see? All right.
I said, all right, Penny's penmanship is not bad, but I was watching her write, and if you've ever seen like a toddler pick up a crayon and just draw it with a fist, that's how it looks like she was writing. So she's going to get mad at my periods and spaces afterwards.
What are you even doing when you do that?
I didn't understand. My brain wouldn't let me because she was sitting next to me, and not only she's left-handed, which is already very suspicious, but that pen was so far down her hand, I couldn't figure out what was going on.
I also tend to write like on top.
Yeah.
You bend your wrist?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was a scene. You should have.
Now I'm all paranoid. I'm going to like go watch myself write. Yeah, because when you're left-handed, when you write.
Oh, here we go. It's the same.
Oh, the left-handers.
What does that make? I don't understand the difference. Why does that matter?
Because your ink will go all over the side of your hand. So generally left-hand people will write upside down.
That makes sense. I get that.
Okay.
But boy,
it was something.
That was It was a lot to take in, and Jeremy was talking, and I kept looking over at her hand, going, "What is she doing? What's happening? Why does she write like a toddler? Like toddler hand? Yeah.
Why does she write like a toddler?
She had toddler hands. All right. So speaking of things we used to do back in a million years ago when we were children.
Well, okay, real quick, when we were learning to write, and it's been so long. Didn't we use I know we use like the fat lines like paper, like the big, but did we use big pencils too?
In kindergarten,
yeah, like in kindergarten, they had like the big. What was the point of that? Instead of giving
your fine motor skills, like
but you have littler hands, so why not give them? I feel like you should have a smaller pencil.
Because it's harder to hold on
golf
to.
Golf pencils,
yeah.
They used to have. I don't know if they still do that,
but we did use fat pencils, right?
Like that's not me.
Okay, yeah.
Do you remember the paper used to like change each year that you moved up? Do you remember that?
No.
Like you had it was.
We had the little dots in the middle, like the little.
Yeah, so there was like a one that was a little bigger. By the time you got to first grade, it was a little bit smaller. Second grade, third grade. Do you not remember that?
No. We had wide roll in college.
I went to public school in Bullitt County. We were just. Oh. They were like.
I went to school.
I went to private school, but it was in Shively. So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Where did you go to elementary school?
I went to Wellington. It's off Cane Run.
Wellington.
I grew up in
Wellington. Wellington.
Both of y'all right now. Jeremy, you just hush down there.
It sounds very fancy.
Toasted marshmallow.
European. It sounds like I went to Wellington.
Everybody get your monocles. We're going to learn to write today.
We had beef Wellington for lunch once a week.
Yeah.
Then we went out on the polo.
I'm done, you guys.
The
podcast is done for Penny today. She's done. I haven't been made fun of twice.
Well, I was making fun of Wellington, none of you. But then you said where it was, and I'm like, well, that's not a fancy place. So it kind of took it away. So, all right. Well, so let me ask you all something else then. Do you all have lots of sodas at your house anymore? Does anybody drink a lot of soda?
Yes, I have a lot. I drink Coke Zero.
All right.
More than I probably should.
Do you have the little rings on the sodas, or do you get them in a big box?
I'm a can person, so.
Well, no, that's what I mean. The cans like used to have. You
buy the 12 pack. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so yeah, those have kind of gone away, right?
What kind of a serial killer buys the ones with the plastic on them? Why would you do that?
Well, I mean, if you're going to a party, you got your sixer with you.
Can you still buy those like that?
I don't know.
They do the mini cans like that. So if you notice recently, like now Coke, which by the way, can we get into those shenanigans? So the mini cans are more expensive than the big cans. And I'm always like, but you're giving me less. Mm-hmm. Like, how does that make any sense?
Well, if you get like a single, what is a bottle of Pepsi? Like 12 ounces, 14?
The bottle's 20 ounces.
20 ounces. All right. So that is more expensive than a 2 liter.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of thing.
You're getting more for,
You're getting less for more money. So it's very strange. But anyway, so apparently, it came to my attention online that somebody was cutting the rings, so the fish don't get stuck.
The turtles, yeah. So the turtles don't get killed.
Well, I'm so tired of turtles. But
I like turtles.
That was apparently also a generational thing where people now are like, you do what now?
Yeah.
So
because they're not used to that.
You're very old and they just don't care about the environment. But the fact that you say, I've not seen a ring on a soda in so long. So we just get them at Costco and they have a bulk case of them. So
yeah.
What do you think about? Would you cut them still, or did you not do that?
I don't cut them.
So you don't care about the turtles or the fish or the dolphins?
Sorry.
But if we lose one more thing because turtles can't deal with it, if I have one more paper straw, I'm just going to go out with a hammer and start hitting turtles.
They really are the worst. I hate paper straws.
I thought you were going to say turtles, but yes, paper straws.
I love turtles.
Turtles are
cute.
I like turtles.
I like turtles.
That's my favorite. All right. So we're done with our millennial boomer talk. And we're going to get to summer's over and all our travels are over. No more vacations this year. But a sad thing in the news, the most disappointing tourist attraction for this year was locally Mammoth Cave. What? It made the top of the list of, well, now we're down here and we're in a hole in the ground, kids. Way to waste your summer vacation.
I love Mammoth Cave. It's good.
Yeah. I have actually never been to Mammoth Cave. But I've heard great things, I think, on this podcast about it from Jeremy especially.
So here would be the thing about Mammoth Cave, I think that might, and I haven't read the article yet, obviously, but could be the disappointing part, is if you do like the free experience or whatever, they basically just take you into like a couple caverns. And it's still cool because you're under earth, and all that stuff. But you don't really see that much. It's more like the ones that are really cool are the ones you have to pay for. And so I'm wondering if a lot of people are just going because it's, and just doing like the free thing. And like you literally just walk into a cavern and they're like, there's the cave. But then like you can go on more like excursion-y ones, but you got to pay for those. So I'm wondering if that's part of it too.
Well, what would be better on the excursion if you want to sell this to someone?
Well, I mean, the other side of it too, like on the excursion ones, like you go through those parts of the cave where you're not really like, what's it called when you go cave diving?
Spelunking?
Yeah. You're not really doing that, but there are parts where you like got to crawl on your belly, like through cracks and like there's parts where, but nothing is awesome. But yeah, so maybe that is the problem. Now, if you want a cave secret for everybody going on vacations and stuff or taking some trips, just go to Kentucky Down Under. Because if you go to Kentucky Down Under, you go to in a free cave, and it's actually just as cool as the Mammoth Cave part, like the free part. So.
I agree.
Well, so this is what I think of because this happened because they found this cave explorer and they did a picture of what he was like when he got stuck and died, and it is so upsetting to me, and it's a visual thing, so it's not good for the podcast, but he was crawling and got to a spot and went down, and the cave ended there, and he was stuck upside down until...
Well, that's just on him for trying to think he'd get... I mean, where was he going?
I don't know, but this is what I think of when I think of crawling on your belly in a cave, and I think this or the movie It's Leaving Me Now. There was a movie where the women, they go down in the dark, and...
Little Women.
And the cave creatures get them.
What?
It's going to come to me in like a half an hour, and I'm going to yell it out, and you're not going to know what we're talking about.
Still Magnolias.
Old? Yep. It's
Still Magnolias.
Fried green tomatoes, I think, is the ending of that.
Wait, is the movie old?
It's 15 years, maybe.
Have we ever talked about how jacked up the ending of Fried Green Tomatoes is, though?
Never seen it because I'm a man.
Oh, well, I saw it when I was a kid, and I remember being, like, horrified at the end.
Spoilers, everybody, 30 seconds ahead. How does it end?
So at the end, like, they end up killing the guy, and then they serve him at their barbecue stand. Mm-hmm. But, like, yeah. What? They end up killing him, but to get rid of the body, they, like, serve him at their, like, restaurant. Like,
is this accurate, Penny?
It is, actually.
But, like, the whole point of, like, the guy needed to die. Like, he was a bad person.
I mean, I listened to
But then the way they get rid of the body is to serve. So, like, you're an unsuspecting customer, and you're getting a barbecue sandwich, and you're actually eating a human being.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, and they end it like that was like, I mean, feed it to a pig. Didn't they watch Fight Club?
What about an unofficial sequel to that, where then people get a taste for it, and then they become cannibals and zombies? That would be
how zombies started.
Fried Green Tomatoes.
It's actually the beginning of Walking Dead was Fried Green Tomatoes. It was the prequel.
FGT2. All right. The movie was called The Descent.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody's apparently seen it. It was horrifying.
That was produced by Dolly Parton.
The Descent?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. She wrote that movie the same day she wrote Jolene and I Will Always Love You.
All right, but that is kind of sad because this Mammoth Cave, I think, is cool.
Well, they played into the bad reviews they're getting with their new catchphrase of "A world of regret awaits you at Mammoth Cave," and then a link because
I think it's just it's overcrowded too. Like when you go on a tour there, it's so many people going with you.
Is there really? What are we doing? People, there's better things outside.
I don't think I've ever been where it's been I
will say the drive to Mammoth Cave, like when you get off that exit,
yeah,
like there's some interesting stuff. Like Jellystone's there, and that's cool. But then there's like a lot of like real weird stuff on the way, and there's all these places.
Dinosaur World, you got to stop.
Yeah, but no, like there's like real like backwoods looking stuff there. And then I do love we should do that sometime as a group. Do a trip where you do where you go down the mountain on the little scooter, like on your back. What's it called? Anyway, it's awesome. You could die. You have to sound away.
You go down. Oh, well, no, I need to know.
Like an alpine slide?
Alpine slide, yes, alpine slide. And they tell you to use the brake, and nobody uses the brake.
It's like Action Park?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Have you ever been there?
No, I've never been to Mammoth Cave.
Yeah, they have an alpine slide, and you're basically like laying on a skateboard on your back, and then they have like a brake, and you're going down these turns, and it's like, who uses the brake? Like, there's multiple times you almost just like go off the side. It's a lot of fun.
Is it possible to run into the person in front of you at full speed?
We did, but yeah.
So it is possible, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then I don't want to do that because I've had a lot of back issues in my life, and I don't really...
But it is scary because I was like, I'm not using this brake. And there were several times I thought I was just going to like fly off the
side. Note, have you ever heard Action Park? Have you seen those documentaries on that?
Yeah, that's a great documentary.
What?
Aware of Action Park in New Jersey?
Yeah.
No.
It's from the late 70s, 80s.
People died.
Like 5 or 6 people were killed there because it was so dangerous.
What was it?
It was Action Park.
It's like Amusement Park.
It's on Max. You should look it up. It's a good, and there's one on YouTube that's a different documentary, and it
was basically run by teenagers.
Yeah, it's all a bunch of kids, and they all look exactly like people who would be getting killed by Jason in Friday the 13th movies with their short shorts and their weed smoke.
That's actually a good documentary.
It's amazing, but there was an alpine slide, and people were flying off of it, hitting their heads.
Yeah,
awesome.
And all these kids have scars, and they're like, back to school wasn't great. It wasn't finished until we heard who got hurt at Action Park, and you had a scar on your leg because you'd had a muscle torn or something, and people were having heart attacks. There was like electric wires in the water. People were getting electric. It was awesome. But everyone was telling these stories, and their eyes were they were like Jeremy at the fair. They were telling these stories, and they were so...
Was this like the 70s?
In the 80s. It was very dangerous, but I'll look into it.
It's a good documentary.
All right, before we move on, also to the next article, I will say we had a great time at the fair, and... If you want to really get into the weeds, you can listen to last year's fair review where we talked about sorghum for far too long. But Jeremy, he is great at making friends. He was unofficially running a table, and he really bonded with a woman over poke salad. Now, what can you tell us about poke salad?
First of all, it's not poke salad. It's poke salad.
Poke salad?
SALETT. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, my fault.
I had no idea.
I didn't go to Wellington, but I've never heard of poke salad. That sounds very fancy. How dare you mock anyone for...
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's how they pronounce it down there, but...
Well, because I looked up poke salad online and it came up, so please.
Well, I mean, they do make it but it's made out of pokeweed. And
it's salad. There it is.
Yeah.
Well, please tell me about poke salad.
It's pokeweed, so it's poisonous, could kill you. But you cook it a certain way, and then you could eat it, and it's just like just a delicious kind of Eastern Kentucky holler type of thing.
I've never been a fan of the things where they have to be prepared, especially one way or you die, like a puffer fish.
Yeah, or like sea urchin like that too.
Anything that you have to cut a certain way or cook a certain way or you die is not really my jam. So
yeah,
so you were a fan of it though.
I don't know if I was a fan of it. It just is something that is part of my childhood. So, I mean, I don't make it or anything like that. Yeah. But, like, I remember people making it and bringing it to things. And
yeah.
So, what is in it? I mean, besides...
No, poke salad. It's just actually this weed. I just looked it up.
It's like mustard greens. You'd cook it like you'd eat it like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you can do different things with it. But, yeah, I mean, it's basically, yeah.
This is
What does it look like when it's cooked?
This, but wet.
Yeah, like greens. Like, just greens. I don't know. I mean... So anyway, I mean, that's just one of those things, like, I remember, like, thinking it was cool that, like, you have to... this could kill you,
Yeah.
So
all parts of the pokeweed, berries, roots, leaves, and stems are poisonous to humans. But there you go.
Awesome.
Well, the lady I think that you were talking to that was excited about it was the woman who never sent us the video of us spinning 360 with Penny jumping off the thing. So
that was very disappointing. Yeah.
But all right. Well, speaking of disappointed, ridiculous things people do, we're going to move down south once again to Florida, where the internet is going real slow. Where police in Florida they have to tell people to stop taking selfies with a depressed black bear.
Why is he? Maybe he's depressed because no one's stopping to take pictures with him.
I don't think that's true, but he's clearly not in the mood for pictures. And
I mean, I know that looks like a wooden statue though, right there though.
Well, that's rude. That's probably not making it better.
Maybe that's why he's depressed.
Poor bear.
He's sitting next to the side of the highway.
How close can you get to that bear? I would love to go take a picture with that bear. I love
the police have asked you to please stop.
Well, police also don't want us to go over 65, and we still do it. So,
that's like true. Jeremy's like one of those people that would go to Yellowstone and then take a picture with a bison like 10 feet away.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, that's not good.
No, yeah. So when we did that bison thing down at Land Between the Lakes and all that, like I was wanting to get out and pet those things.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be good. But
pet that dog. That's right.
That's right. Pet that dog.
I like to ride a bison. Put a saddle on it.
Oh my gosh. Well, I just don't know. Now,
I mean, how awesome would that be? Just to be on top of a bison with you, like,
I knew you were still thinking
riding
about it
around like a. I don't know.
Well, I want to just go ahead and say in this article where they're asking not to, that they do have a law now that's signed in the free state of Florida that allows the public to shoot and kill bears if they're a perceived threat.
What is the bears?
Wait. Yeah. Okay. Well, so the legislation for this law was drawn up by the state congressman Jason Schoaf, a keen hunter who, according to his biography, claimed in February that, quote, bears high on crack were breaking into people's houses and tearing them apart.
So this is what he saw cocaine bears. What happened?
I mean, I don't think this has ever happened where bears got high on crack and went crazy. But
do you think that he thought Cocaine Bear was a documentary? Like you went and saw it? It was like,
not in my state, he said. We're going to get these bears. So anyway, and now we're seeing a lot of personality from Jeremy where he would definitely get out. If I saw a bear on the side of the road.
Absolutely.
No, sir.
Yeah.
I think a lot of things in life I say no, sir, and I just keep moving where a lot of people stop. And apparently people do this with turtles a lot. If we're talking about turtles again, where they get out of the road and they help them across, or they...
I mean, I'd throw that thing a steak and just become friends with it and be like, here you go.
Is that how you think that a bear... Yeah. Oh, this guy's all right, people.
I would definitely be in the car watching.
I give him a picnic basket like Yogi. We'd be friends. What was Yogi's little bear friend's name?
Boo.
Boo. Yogi and Boo. I'd be like, yeah.
When I lean away, feel free to keep talking. Yeah. I was trying to find an image.
If we're going to do a bucket list, to ride a bison, to high five a bear, and to be a falconer, like to have a falcon just land on your arm, like those would be 3 of the best pictures ever.
Oh man! Well, this is not that bear, but if you
Jeremy needs to become a park ranger.
I would love to be a park ranger.
I bet you would.
Yeah.
Do you have to go to school for that?
Yeah.
What school do you go to? What is
Eastern Kentucky's got a program. Well, actually, one of my real good friends, his roommate was in that program, and I think got a job at, not Yellowstone, I know that's the big one, but there's another big one out west he got a job at, somewhere out in Colorado.
Yeah.
But yeah, he went to school for that. Like, you have to go to school for...
What degree do you get?
I don't know, Paul. That was a long time ago. But I think it's like a park ranger like program, and you like have to get like a
biology of some sort.
Yeah, he had to like understand animals. He had to like go. I remember like he had to go and take classes about like environment too, like for like fires, and because that's part of their job is like for like wildfires and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but I remember him. He was full of fascinating things.
What is happening?
This lady's taking a bear selfie.
I bet this is all over Instagram. I need to look this up.
Well, it's surprisingly not on Google, but since they've gone to their AI stuff. So anyway, well, we're going to go from bears. We're going to go to Arizona. Football season's getting to start, guys. Are you excited about that?
I am.
Well, if you're an Arizona Cardinal fan and you live there, there's something cool on the menu this year. The cotton candy burrito.
That sounds terrible.
And coming from our fair where they have deep fried everything, do yourself a favor and Google image search a cotton candy burrito because it is absolutely horrific. I would rather take a selfie with a bear, I think, than
that looks
take a bite of this.
How big is that exactly?
So instead of the tortilla, they are using cotton candy that's been compressed somehow to be able to pick up and hold.
Okay.
And I want to read what's inside because some of these things you think, oh, we have enjoyed a little bit of delicious freeze-dried candy that seems to be all the rage now before the podcast. And some of it's great. Some of it is not really my dealings, but you get the flavors and you're like, I understand what this is. And kids would love it. These flavors don't all mix.
I would eat that though. Flaming hot chicken tenders, flaming hot Cheeto chicken.
That does sound.
Yeah, some chicken tendies
and waffles as the buns for the fried chicken with that too.
I would do that.
It sounds real good. I'm trying to find what's okay. So it is cotton candy wrapped around Fruity Pebbles, Fruit Loops, marshmallows, Skittles, which sound terrible for your teeth, gummy bears and sprinkles, but also mini M&Ms.
No.
So in the middle of all that sweet fruity flavor, there are
you can't make. Have you ever mixed a Skittle and M&M?
No, because that sounds awful.
It is awful.
There's no worse prank in the world than throwing a handful of M&Ms in somebody's Skittles and just good luck, sir.
Awful. M&M and Skittles do not mix at all.
Is it like blending?
It looks like if you took like the colon of like a kid that had to sleep over, just like you cut it.
I wasn't gonna say it, but I was like, just slice open a colon.
It like does look like
that was at a sleepover at their grandparents. That's what it looks like.
Jeremy, that's a gorgeous piece of business there. Yeah, that is. So
I'm glad I wasn't
succinct.
the only one thinking that.
I didn't think that, but now that's all I can see. So don't get the pink, I guess, is what Jeremy's saying.
Yeah.
I think there's a blue. Oh, there's
what?
Oh, what else? Oh, that looks delicious.
Looks
that is
like
a loaded baked potato with brisket appearing on top of
Ooh, I do
nacho
like
cheese.
That's a big. I thought it was.
Do
a
we
pickle.
have the flaming hot chicken tenders? Or are those going to be?
I don't know. Oh, I hit the wrong button. No. So no, I guess we're not because I'm bad at my job here. So yeah, that I was thinking about people. They see the different things at the fair, like the butt fries and things, and they go, I don't know, but
butt fries.
it's the
Pork butt
on fries. But they call them butt fries.
Literally says butt fries, and we were like, what? Not a good.
Well, I think it was get people talking.
Loaded baked potato.
That looks disgusting.
No,
In the
that
middle
looks
of a
amazing.
pickle.
Ooh, that
Whoa.
looks good.
Oh, I'd eat that. What is that?
Poke salad.
No, it's spicy tuna poke bowl.
I don't see the spicy tuna. Oh, it's in the
Is
middle.
it edamame on there? Is
I'm
that
going to
what
go
it
ahead
is?
and pass because, again, you're at a football game. What are you doing with this?
Edamame looks like lima beans.
We got
Really
your
do.
That looks good.
burrito sandwich.
Ooh, that does look good. I would eat all these things.
That does not. That why
actually
would
does
you
look
pick
good.
that as the picture?
I would still looks good. It's like a Philly cheesesteak with
You get your
jalapenos.
3 tacos.
These are way too fancy for a football game.
Yeah, I need a $10 hot dog and a $17 soda. Actually, yeah, everything but that burrito is looking good.
But I think stadiums are having to do that because now people are like wanting to go like and have like a culinary experience. Like every stadium now has like fancy stuff now.
They're going to go home and have a culinary experience. Hey, everybody. That looks amazing too.
So Cincinnati Reds have I've not had it. I've seen people get it. They have a hot dog. It's an all beef like hot dog and they wrap it in bacon and then they deep fry the whole thing. And then they put chili on top, like Cincinnati style chili with cheese, and then they deep fry pieces of salami and chop them up like bacon bits.
What are we doing in America?
How do you eat this?
Like, I've never had it, but like the description of it is just like it sounds pretty amazing.
What am I looking at?
That is a meatball hoagie on a stick, and they
That
have
is-
made a special bun that wraps around it like a snake. Yeah,
It looks like something's coming out of something.
Oh, I was thinking it looks like somebody had their pants on wrong. But all right, we're gonna just keep it real. All right,
All right.
So, all right. Well, away from
That
Arizona.
was the least appetizing thing I think I've ever seen.
Well, I hope so. Okay, so we're gonna move.
Way to go, Arizona.
America is losing their mind with that, so we're gonna move far away from America to space.
I
Now,
like space.
well, there's the quote for the week. Jeremy likes space. Have you all heard about the poor astronauts that have been stranded? Nobody. What? I mean, Boeing is having a rough year. If you had Boeing stock in January, you're like, that's not bad, and now doors are flying off planes. And
Well, they're going to go get them in a couple months, right?
In a couple of months.
in a couple of months.
You're
they're thinking February maybe of next year.
That's a couple
months.
That's
That's a
that's
long
4
time
months.
to be stuck in space.
This is
Where are they stuck in space at? On the space station?
Mercury.
they're. What do you mean? Where are they stuck in space? They're not like.
Like, I'm just wondering, like, where they're at the space station, right?
Yeah. Where's the Space Force when you need them?
I'm saying.
I thought we were
Right.
invested in that. Like, where's...
Well, that's more like lasers and things. I would feel like not a big ladder to go get these people. So these two, and I'll go and ask. I think another answer. Jeremy, would you ever want to be an astronaut?
Yes, I wanted to when I was a child. I wanted to go to space camp so bad.
Penny?
No,
Yeah, and that's a no for me too, dog. Because I'm not overly claustrophobic,
I am.
but I'm in a spot where, like, if I'm in a cave, no. I'm not like if you're in like an MRI machine and they're like, you're claustrophobic, you can't do it. I'm like, I'm
Yeah, I would love
6
to go to
feet
space.
from being in an open room. In space, you're just stuck, and you're like, well, there's so much room, and I can't get out
in
of
outer
it.
space.
Yeah, that doesn't do it for me at all. I don't know.
Like, you're not it's not like I don't know. You would be stuck with people maybe you got stuck with people you didn't like.
Well, I hope Butch and Sunita are good friends because they have. Can you imagine if you two were chosen to go to the space station and you're like, this will be fine. It'll be a week with Penny. It'll be nice. Oh, a week with
you're
Jeremy. I
stuck
can
up
deal with
there.
that. Oh, 7 or 8 months of just the two of us hanging out with some Russians.
How do they even...
Ooh, the Russians would be fun.
I think they're up there too. Yeah.
So I guess they have enough supplies.
Well, it's funny enough. They sent them supplies, but didn't take them back home. I feel like was something in the story that they were initially supposed to return to Earth about a week after they arrived in June, and now it's turned into.
Hope they got enough toilet paper.
I think they just don't. They just have a tube that just kind of sucks it out of your butt. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not much into science. Like Jeremy's into science.
I mean, everything they eat is freeze dried, so who knows? I mean, it would be like them eating this freeze dried candy. Do you think they just get to eat Spaceman ice cream all day long? That would be awesome.
Yeah,
there's nothing grosser than space ice cream.
Are you serious? I love that stuff.
No, at the science center, we would always go on a field trip and we're getting the space ice cream and just.
I love freeze dried food. It's
always terrible.
I love freeze dried food.
Well. I think this is bad news, but I don't think anybody has any real opinions on it. So we're gonna keep moving. But I thought I had a lot of hope for it. But I guess SpaceX is gonna send them something. So
that'd be awesome.
Hopefully it goes better than what's going. I just can't. 8 months, 9 months with just that other person seems. I seem like books are gonna be written.
I'd like to go to space with that depressed bear. Me and him go up there and hang out. We'll be friends.
But no photos.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well,
maybe that's his problem. He wants to go to space and nobody will let him.
They never do bears in space. They always send dogs. It's sad.
I thought they did send a bear to space one time. They do dogs and monkeys.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they? I think a bear would be a lot less docile to get in the suit.
Yeah, that's true.
And put up there.
But how funny would it be to see a big bear in a space suit?
I mean, space bears. If you're listening to DreamWorks,
I would love to do it. Yeah.
Cocaine Bear in Space would be a good sequel. I'd go see that in a second too. So.
Oh, goodness.
All right. Well, and then finally, before we really get into it, we've got
the Chick-fil-A. I see it.
Chick-fil-A.
What?
Is starting their own streaming television service.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And there's like Christian shows. April will love this.
One would hope
what
so.
What did you jump to that for? They're abroad. They're
not showing Outlander on there for sure. They're goodness. No, it's gonna be nice, wholesome, I hope Christian and chicken based.
It's gonna be Highway to Heaven.
Oh no. Well, they are in talks to license and acquire content, so
Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman.
What was the other one? Touched by an Angel.
Touched by an Angel. What was that guy that was in all those shows? He was
on Michael Landon.
Michael Landon. He was on Little House on the Prairie, right? That's what he started with, and then he went to.
Well, he was in Highway to Heaven. Was he on the rest of those shows?
I don't know. I just started naming shows from my childhood. My mom watched
Seventh Heaven.
No, that was not Seventh Heaven.
No, I'm just
Jessica
saying these are shows though that they could acquire. I'm sorry, we're doing Michael Landon.
Oh no,
Walker
Texas Ranger. They could do Walker Texas Ranger.
I didn't realize what we were doing.
There are episodes where he went to church. Walker Texas Ranger.
That makes sense. He's one of those people. So
Steven Seagal stuff. Anything Steven Seagal. I think he's a Christian, isn't he?
Wow, this is making me really want to watch this.
He is some kind of Eastern religion, and he's like a bodyguard for Putin now. I think I think he's gone the other way fully with that. So, so you got no thoughts on Chick-fil-A having you're looking...
I don't understand the point of it.
Well, I think the thing is they have a strong brand that you hear Chick-fil-A, and was the first thing we thought. Oh, they're doing Jesus shows. So it looks like they're going to do a lot of reality, perhaps.
But isn't there already like a bunch of Christian networks, though?
But they don't have the brand recognition, I think, that Chick-fil-A has, and I think that's where they're getting into it because I think that is the biggest player in the game is the name. Because apparently they do shows and they have other companies that they have released things under. And I don't know the name of it here.
I mean, this is
But $400,000 per half hour for these shows that they're,
I did read another article said that they already have a studio that they've actually been leasing out to Marvel, and a bunch of the Marvel movies have been
Chick-fil-A is doing it?
It's in Atlanta.
Is it Tyler Perry's area of?
It might be Tyler Perry's, but
Atlanta's really
Relevant had an article about this the other day, and they said that they own the studio that a bunch of the Marvel movies were made at, but it might be Tyler Perry's studio they bought. I don't know.
Well,
I know that he had a big one down there too.
He has done a lot, but also I think he was getting out of it a little bit because of AI, and he was worried that it was going to.
Because he's done with Medea, and they're like 75.
Medea goes to space. I mean, that's
Medea goes to space.
Come on,
with a bear.
Hallelujah. That's my Medea impression. I can't. Not great. So, all right. Well, Penny's a big Medea fan apparently, so that kind of good. All right.
So what would be like? So Chick-fil-A's doing streaming. How is it connected to the food, or is it literally?
I'm gonna say none.
They just own it. They just own the studio.
I think much like Amazon is just shipping and delivering, but you have Amazon Prime, and now it's a bunch of shows.
What if every show they make, like all they do is eat Chick-fil-A? Like,
I mean, I feel like that would be beautiful. Truman Show kind of.
Yeah.
They're just sitting around the table talking about their day, and they're all just peeling out the sandwiches from the bag. I think that's the way to go. It's built-in marketing, but I really don't know. But I didn't know, is there anything that you would get if you had to pick one of your streaming services to get rid of to add the Chick-fil-A? Is that something you'd be interested in?
No.
Oh, man, that's 3 no's. So
hard pass.
I don't know. I I did HBO because it came free with my phone. I don't watch as much stuff on HBO as I thought I would.
Yeah, it's mostly not even HBO anymore. Now it's all Home and Garden and RoboCop. We've been watching a lot of RoboCop at the house. All right. Well, apparently, though, they do have shows they've already made called Stories of Evergreen Hills, and they also have children's puzzles and board games under Penny Cake.
Awesome.
So, hey,
is it Evergreen Hills from Sonic the Hedgehog?
I don't know. I was a Nintendo person, not a Genesis guy, so not a Sega. Sorry. There is a new Sonic the Hedgehog movie coming out, though.
Why?
I think because, like we talked about last week, people like money, and those movies, they make tons of money. I don't know.
I know. My kids want to see them.
Addie was so excited. She is especially, are you familiar with Ugly Sonic?
Yes.
And just how hilarious that.
Yeah, Evergreen Hills, Green Hill Zone from Sonic.
We've
everybody
moved,
hang on.
We've actually moved past that.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I remember it from the video game.
Yeah.
So somebody was saying the other day, they tweeted that, like, because you don't think about how smart and intelligent and just how he actually was, because he hadn't done anything in a long time.
Are we talking about Sonic?
No, but Jim Carrey.
Oh, Jim Carrey.
His last movie is going to be Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, well.
Because he had a string where he had like a lot of really good movies in a row.
Yeah.
And like he's going to end on. So he started with Ace Ventura and he's ending on Sonic the Hedgehog.
Well.
And then he had like a brilliant career in the middle, but then it's like, seriously?
I think he's just doing something fun. Maybe something he likes to do.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that there was one sad thing.
Oh, those are scary. Those real life Sonics.
Well, no, this was the. Oh well, that's no good. Let's not look at that. There was an Ugly Sonic that came out, the original trailer for the first Sonic movie, and the internet said, "Please, no teeth. What are we doing?
I think we talked about that one time.
Yeah,
and they just decided to change it. Now it's become a huge franchise. They have a show on Paramount Plus now
with Teeth Sonic.
With the characters from the movie. It's a continuation. I mean, it's a whole universe that they made for making that change to this. So there's a new movie coming out that is going to be now Ray Liotta's last movie. So Cocaine Bear is actually not going to be his legacy.
So another movie he'd shot some stuff on that.
Yes, because he has since left us. But
that's what I'm saying. I mean, they do CGI now.
He came back just for that.
It is a movie set in like the 80s in LA. I don't know, one of those crime movies like he likes to do. So Anyway, all right. Well, so now that we're past all the nonsense, last week 2 weeks ago, we had a little discussion about atheism on here. And I think, listening back, part of my question I had for Jeremy in that, and I don't think maybe I worded it properly, but he didn't understand what I was saying is, so I think that whenever I would meet people who would say things like, if they would say that they were Buddhist and, if they followed another religion like that, those people seem to really adhere to what those religions did. Like that was kind of their thing. They were like, well, we are changing our ways fully, and and as much as we possibly can, even to an annoying level, was, this is not what the Buddha says, and this is it. But they would it was a full-on change in their life. And there's certainly people that I've met in my life who become Christians and have done that. But it seems like, at least in my circle of... Can you stop with the
What are you doing down there?
It's so cute.
There's so much bunny light coming from...
I'm sorry.
That's okay. There's so many people who I've definitely met a ton of people who are like, all right, well, I'm a Christian now, and they've kind of cleaned up their act, so to speak, or they've started moving into a different direction. But there's a lot of people who say, hey, yeah, I'm a Christian, and those words are the last time you would ever notice that anything in their life is anything related to Jesus. So I thought we could talk about what actually is Christianity and I'm sure being a Christian means different things to different people, but what is, from someone who has, the education in that, what does that actually mean?
So the first part of it, though, to answer your question about like the other religions, is most other religions, you have to still operate in a system of you've got to do X, Y, and Z so that God or Buddha or the universe is happy with you. Okay. So it's almost every other religion is a performance-based religion. Okay. So that's why a lot of people do change everything, because it's like, no, I've got to perform, I've got to do X, Y, and Z so that the gods are happy with me, or whatever. So, but in Christianity, it's less about you and more about what, Jesus has done for you. Mm-hmm. And so I think from the beginning, that was where it gets confusing for a lot of people, because whereas Christianity is based on, it doesn't matter what you've done, that God still accepts you, loves you, wants you type of thing. most other religions, not all of them, but most of them are all going to be like, now you've got to do X, Y, and Z so that you can be good for God or gods or whatever it is. So that's the mindset too from the beginning, is like, it's not about what I've done. It's about, and then I think that for some people that just doesn't change, because we talk about grace and all that. And I mean, I think I'm going to answer your question, but just to start, I think for most people, it's like, I've always thought like, Christianity is I go and do whatever I want. I fill up my sin bucket, and I come in on Sunday and I'm like, please God, forgive me, or it's like, I can do whatever I want. And then at night I just get on my knees and say, God, forgive me. And he does. And then you're forgiven, kind of in the Christian mindset. So I think that's why so many people, when they get into Christianity, they don't change, is because why would I? Why would I change if at the end of the day, it's just I just got to ask for forgiveness or say a prayer or do whatever. That is until you actually study Jesus. And Jesus seems to be is equally, if not more, focused on you becoming who you're becoming as a person as much as, and I think it's another part of it, and I hope this is answering. We've made Christianity all about where I go when I die. Like, there's really not that much in the Bible even about what happens when you die. You know what I'm saying? And so that's just a misunderstanding of what Christianity was based on, And so Christianity obviously comes out of Judaism, and we've talked about before, like that in Judaism, you had the Sadducees and the Pharisees, the two main schools of thought in that day and age. And the Sadducees didn't even believe in an afterlife. So it was like you just live your life and try to be good, and God will be happy with you. And if God's happy with you, he gives you a good life and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like you die, and it's done. So anyway, so I think it's just from the beginning, there's been a lot of confusion with that. So what is Christianity, in my opinion, or my studying? Well, first of all, Christianity is, so the first time that word is used, Christians, is later in the book of Acts. So the original Christians, they were called the Way. So they were followers of the Way. And so the Way was the way of Jesus. And so the way of Jesus was all about how you treat your neighbor, how you treat each other, how we do this. And of course, the God factor is love God and love people, which is Jesus' kind of main thought line. So it's important that you love God and you do all these things, but it's more also equally important how you love your neighbor, how you treat your neighbor. And that's about you becoming a better person, So the word Christian doesn't even pop up till later. So
yeah. Well, so you're saying in what you've seen, and I mean it's so
that light.
I was turning it off.
It's like out of the corner of eye every couple of seconds.
Catching me too. Like, that's really funny. All right. So loving God and loving your neighbor, which, some of the big Jesus moments, that seems to be the big tenets, believing in Jesus.
Yeah.
And then loving God and loving your neighbor are like the big kind of three things. And then everything else that we put on it is just kind of stuff that we've added to it that, well, not everything, but
Well, and some of it's not adding stuff as much as we've made a bigger deal out of some things that maybe weren't as big of a deal. Does that make sense? And so again, I think that your goal when you follow, I always say it this way. I think that Jesus, because he's fully God and fully human, Jesus' own, he shows us the best way of what God is like. But then I also think that he shows us what the best way to be human, what humans are capable of. And so it's like a mixture of those two worlds of like, he's showing us what God is like. So, I mean, Jesus even says the best way to understand God is to look at me. But then he's also, because he's human, he's also showing us what potential we have as human beings, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so you're following the way in my mind, that's what you're doing is you're trying. Jesus shows us what a human being is actually capable of when it comes to putting other needs first and meeting the needs of others and taking care of others and helping others and doing all those things, I mean, like famous line, for even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, like he's saying, this is what it means to be human, is to put others before yourself.
Well, I think a lot of people, they get, and this is where, I mean, it's in my own life, it's kind of hard, but people say like, I believe in Jesus, but people seem to believe, but they don't follow. So there's a difference between, but there's just such a vast range of people who call themselves Christians, but then you're like, well, I believe Jesus, but then that's kind of the extent of it. It's like, I don't really go any steps further.
And I think the other side of that is Christian is such a broad term. I mean, there's so many, so if you're talking, and we'll get into the weeds a little bit. So like, if you're talking Christian, I mean, when we think of the word Christian, we think of like us. But I mean, there's so many branches of Christianity. I mean, Catholicism. I mean, the big one's Catholicism, Protestantism. But even within those branches, there's so many branches that come out of those movements.
Right.
And so, like, when you say what is Christian, like, that is a really big term. Like, that could be and depending on where you grew up and when you grew up, that's going to look completely different to different people. Does that make sense? Like, it's like even I don't want to say a stream, but maybe that's the right way to say it. The stream of Christianity we find ourselves on would look dramatically different than 50 years ago, like even in maybe the same area, just because it's changed. And, so I think that's part of it too, is it's constantly, I don't say evolving, but I guess it is evolving constantly.
Yeah.
So who coined the name Christians? Like, how far into the way or the movement did that actually?
That happens early on, and it happened, and we could look it up. I used to know this right off the top of my head.
And like, where was the church at that time when that was where were we at that moment?
Well, so when the term Christian is, I mean, it literally means little Christ is kind of the word that's used. And so where was it first called? The follower of Christ. It was in Antioch. I was going to say Athens, but Antioch. So that's the first time that they said that these are Christians instead of the way of Christ. And so, I mean, so as far as where we were at, I mean, so even at this point, when that term is first used, I'm not sure that Gentiles were even a thing yet. So like, it was still pretty much just Jewish converts to Christianity. So it was still very early on when that term popped up. But so, yeah.
And I agree with Jeremy. I mean, like like Christian is broad, right? It's just a broad term. So like people who celebrate Christmas, maybe not go to church but we would say that they're Christians, right? Because they're celebrating a holiday.
Well, and that's where, I mean, and people would disagree with this, and I'm sure we'll get some hate from this, but like some people would say, oh, well, Catholics aren't Christians. And I'm like, yeah, they are. Yeah. Like, it's completely different. It is different than what we think of a Christian because we're Protestant. But that's what I'm saying. Like, the word Catholic literally just means universal. So at one point, the whole church was Catholic because it just means universal. So it was the universal church. And then it, obviously Protestantism came out of that with the Reformation or with Martin Luther and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many. And then you get in like the Greek Orthodox and all that stuff. I mean, that looks so much dramatically different than us. And even, and that's, so when I say all that, I'm just trying to like paint a picture. Like, it's, when you say, what does it mean to be Christian? Like, it just depends on who you're asking because it's going to be a lot. Right. I mean, the base core of what it means to be Christian is to believe that Jesus was the Son of God, that Jesus died for us, that our hope is in Jesus. I mean, those are the basic tenets of that. But you get outside those basic tenets of believing that he is the Son of God and that he died for us and that our hope is in Jesus. And I'm sure there's more, but like, you get outside those basic 5 or 6 tenets, I mean, it starts going all over the place.
But it's more for us. I mean, it's a reflection. That's what we want to be, is to reflect Christ in our everyday life. Like, that's what we're teaching our kids every Sunday, is that we should be teaching kids compassion and empathy and understanding. Like, that is also part of that. Yeah,
the goal is to be more like Christ. So I think that's the problem, is that for most people, it's about where I go when I die. That's why I brought that whole part. So most people, that when they think of Christian, all they're really thinking of is, I want to go to heaven when I die. And I hate to say it this way, but it's true. That's a me-centered idea.
Well, so like,
not a we-centered, or does that make sense? I mean, you're making that about yours. And I think that's a perk, whatever heaven's like, which again, that's a whole different category of, we don't even know what heaven's like, but
Well, I mean, I've talked about it on here before, and I really, I credit the way I was brought up, the church I was brought up in, with a lot of like the foundation of who I am. But a lot of it seemed to be, it was step one, you believe, and then you go down front and you say, hey, I believe in Jesus. You get baptized, and then you go out and you do your best not to sin, and you tell everybody you can about Jesus, and then you go to heaven. That was like the one. That was the whole step by step to go from your sinning lifestyle to paradise on the streets of gold. That was like the deal. But there was no like, well, maybe we don't, step over the homeless people on the way to church because we're running late. No, right. There's no like being kind to your neighbor. There was no, I mean, basically everything that Jesus talked about, we kind of glanced over because it was like, well, I believe, and now I'm going to go out and keep my head down. Don't look at the wrong thing. Don't get drunk. And then I'm going to heaven. But it was, and I see it so much of like, I mean, we're not going to get into politics, but like so much of people who are like, well, this is a Christian nation and this is what we do and this is what we believe. But I'm like, everything that you're saying right now is so against all of your neighbors and there's no mention of actual God or Jesus, and it's just your opinion but it's so similar to things I saw as a child that I'm like, I see where this is coming from, but you're wrong. But you're not. It's like what you said, the things of being a Christian, like the 4 or 5 main things have kind of all been glanced over because they've said, hey, I believe in Jesus and now I'm going to heaven. And then everything else is...
It's a me-centered idea, but it also becomes an us-them-centered idea. Mm-hmm. And Jesus doesn't... If you actually read the words of Jesus, he doesn't allow that category. Like, I mean, even Sunday when we talked about, like, the enemy thing. Like, Jesus... Like, I was kind of waiting for people to like respond to that because it's not me that said it, but it's Jesus. But that verse where it talks about like that God blesses the good and the bad, the righteous and the unrighteous, like that God doesn't show favoritism just because you are a good person or a bad person or whatever. I mean, and so like, you know, Jesus is saying those things, not me, you know, but like, you know, I think that it becomes an us versus them. And, you know, I think that is the significance of the story of Jonah was, I think if you study the story is really about, it's a reflection of Israel that God had called them to be the hope of the world through a connection through him, and they made it all about themselves. Mm-hmm. And so they weren't actually going out and telling about God's love to other nations. And Nineveh at that point would have been the worst nation you could think of because it's the Assyrians who are their enemies. And so it's actually, if you look at it, it's actually a story that's basically saying to Israel, hey, you made this about you and not about what it was supposed to be about. And then Jonah's mad because all of a sudden now God's forgiven these people and shown grace to these people. So that's an Old Testament story. So flash forward to the New Testament and you're still getting into the same stuff, you know, where it's like, it's an us versus them story, you know? And I mean, this is going to be a completely bad thing, but like, I think of it as like, do you remember if you watch Seinfeld, do you remember when Putty became a Christian? Mm-hmm. Do you remember that episode?
Yeah.
And he wanted Elaine to go steal his neighbor's newspaper. And she was like,
she was going to hell.
She was going to hell. So why does it matter? Like, you're already going to hell. So like, but it's like that mentality, you know, like, you know, you're going to hell. So it's us versus them.
I think we talked about in here, will you watch my dog when I get raptured because the dog's not coming, but I see how you live. Can you take care of, you know, my puppy when you're gone? So here's another thing. Then this is, I kind of like just having Jeremy here and we just talk about things that then I think of. All right, so the story of Jonah then and this is, I need the eggshell sound effect we're walking on, could just be somewhat of a metaphor or an allegory for Israel and not necessarily 100%.
Yeah, I mean, so I won't give my personal views on here, but I mean, you could probably read through the lines. Many scholars will say the story of Jonah circulated during a period of time. So we're going to get really into some stuff. There's First Temple literature and Second Temple literature. So a lot of Second Temple literature is stuff that came out after the Second Temple, which is in like 700 something. And, but some of that stuff doesn't exist in First Temple literature. But all of a sudden now it's part of the stories. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people would say things like, even like the story of Job. So Job is actually the oldest story in the Bible. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of scholars will say like, did those things actually even happen? Or was it just stories that people were telling because it was oral tradition?
Right.
And there's a meaning behind the story. That's why we're telling them. But it's not so much that it actually happened as much as it's like, it's not a fable, but it's like that. Like it's telling you a story. It's telling you
like a parable.
Yeah, it's telling you a point, but did it really happen? Jonah seems to be a little bit different than Job in the sense that Jonah seems to have, it lines up like historically with some of the stuff that was going on in the world then. Mm-hmm. But a lot of scholars will tell you, okay, whether it was or wasn't a story, that doesn't matter. Like it happened. What matters is the point behind the story.
Mm-hmm. Well, so like that was a thing growing up where if you would talk to people who didn't go to church and like your peers as a child or even like middle school or high school, and somebody was like, oh, well, you believe that, you know, a guy got swallowed by a whale or a big fish and lived in there and then did all this stuff. Like that's just nonsense. And then people who were raised like me would say, well, no, this would be where the argument would go. It wouldn't be like, are you serving God? Do you believe in God? Do you believe in Jesus? It would be like the biology of a fish would not allow that to happen. And then it turns into a whole argument about the semantics of the fish story instead of the point of the actual Bible. But there was never a time in my life growing up that anybody would say, well, this, you know, it could be just, are you looking at the point of the story or are you looking at the English version of the story and saying, hey, this is word for word what happened, and there's no arguing it. So I think it's refreshing a little bit to hear that there are other points of view out there that you don't have to argue that point, because that's not necessarily.
Well, if you look at Old Testament literature, and this is again getting into some of the weeds, there's a lot of stories that not just scholars, but like if you go study under like Jewish rabbis and stuff like that, they'll tell you like sometimes they painted pictures of stuff to grab your attention in the story. Mm-hmm. And so it's like Jonah starts with a man getting eaten by a whale. Oh, okay, now I'm listening. Yeah. Like, tell me the rest, you know. So they'll even say, I don't even know if the whale matters as much as we had to explain. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Like, it was to grab your attention.
I'm not listening to what God has said to do.
Yeah.
And then I'm being punished, and then I realized, oh, maybe what I should have done all along was do.
Well, and some people will say the point of the whale wasn't that he was being punished. The point of the whale was it was an act of grace, because God could have just let him die, because he's thrown overboard, and so he would have drowned. But instead, God saved him and gave him another chance. And then he goes, which again goes back into Israel's history. Like God keeps giving them more chances, and they still end up on the ground at the end of the story, ticked off because God didn't do it the way they wanted them to do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just not a story of Israel. That's a story of people.
But that discussion, this was the first time in my life that was the discussion, and not, you know.
Was there a whale?
Well, was it a whale?
It's not even a whale, it's fish. First of all, it's fish.
It was Jonah and the whale in Sunday school.
But the technical word is fish in there.
My action figures, it was definitely a whale. And I saw Pinocchio, and it could happen.
Did you build a fire there too?
No, I'm sure it came with like a little one that you could like sit inside.
A lot of people thinking there's a fire being built in there.
Can we, for Halloween this year, can we do whales and put little candles in them?
I like it.
Instead of a jack-o'-lantern.
One of my true story. One of my favorite. I don't know if I've told you this. I think I have. One of my favorite Halloween costumes, because we used to go to, like, for Halloween, we used to do a big thing at church, but you can only be Bible characters. So we made a giant whale out of cardboard boxes, and I was inside of it, and I had a little squirt gun every once in a while. I'd squirt out the blowhole, and I was Jonah in the whale. But they would just wheeled me around on it, like it was like on a cart, and I was Jonah in the whale.
So. That's great.
Do you ever just wish you knew Jeremy in high school? Like, right. Especially at the fair.
I mean, I can imagine he's a lot the same as he was then now.
Yeah.
Well, so I really got to the bottom of it.
Way off of what it means to be Christian. But
we fixed a lot of issues, and we gave a definitive definition.
I think what it is, when people say, well, what does it mean to be Christian? I think that you have to go to the tenets first. I do think that you have to say, for something to be identified as Christian, you have to believe that, because it's all about who Jesus was. Mm-hmm. You know, was Jesus the Son of God? Did Jesus die on the cross? Was he raised from the dead? And is our hope in him? So those are the four tenets.
Mm-hmm. So if you're checking off boxes,
those are the four tenets that identify something as Christian. And then I said from then, so once they identify that in the New Testament in Acts, that these people believe these things, then it becomes becoming like Christ, followers of him. And then that's when the Gospels emerge. And the Gospels are emerging to say, this is what Jesus was like. This is what Jesus taught us. This is what he did. Not only just, some people think that the point of the Gospels is to lead to the cross, and that's partially true. But the other part of the Gospels is for Jesus to show us what it looks like to be human, and what's possible for us. And, he came to show us what God is like, but also the best version of ourselves, what we could be like.
Well, I think that's a pretty good explanation of what Christianity is. I keep seeing it all the time, and especially online it gets real bad, because you start seeing the people who are self-described Christians, and they're never talking about Jesus. They're never talking about love, and it's always well, we have a whole list, and I made a list of people that we have discussed their celebrity baptisms and things on there, and then 2 months later they're doing something horrific, and you're like, stop it.
I always say it's not original to me. I've stole it from somewhere else a long time ago. I think the biggest thing is the problem with Christianity is everybody can tell us what we're against. Nobody can tell us what we're for.
Yeah.
Well. And I think that's what becomes the problem with at least American Christianity. Everybody knows what we're against. Everybody knows what we're boycotting. Everybody knows who we're supposed to vote for, or, it's almost like, and I don't want to get into politics at all because it's stupid, but it's almost like the assumption, oh, you're going to vote this way because you're a Christian. Yeah. And most of the time that's probably fairly accurate, I would say. But not always. Right. And, and so I think but that's become that American idea of something. And that goes back into those us versus them categories. So,
wow.
Which Jesus was not a big fan of, us versus them categories.
Well, hopefully we haven't upset too many people this week.
And if you have, it's okay.
I mean, we used to have a email address on here that we would send to, but I don't really want the problems this week. So we have a new hotline set up. So if you want to call and discuss anything.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus said to love your enemies and do good things for them and pray for them. So if you got upset, I'm now your enemy. So you should do good things and pray for me. And that's Jesus. You can email him. We'll pray to him.
You can reach out at 502 and send those
Who is that?
issues to anything.
I don't know who that is.
That's your number, Penny.
Why would you do that?
I'll cut it out. It's fine.
Oh, good.
That's really funny that you didn't know your own cell phone number.
I did. I was like, what are you doing right now?
Okay, yeah, it's not. We're not going out live. That would be crazy bananas to do that. Because you could put my phone number on too. So
Awesome.
all right. Well, you all out there.
You know what number we should put on there? It's like, do you remember you should, you remember when you should call and get the weather? Do you remember that? Like wave 3, you could call and get the weather. Did you ever do that?
No,
it was like
no.
You could call a number and it was wave 3 and it was just the weather, so you could listen to the weather for that.
Yeah.
They didn't have apps back then.
But why would you care about the weather so much that you would call and check it in?
Because you want to know what it's going to rain or how hot it's going to be.
Oh, you
got to get ready for school.
I was way less anxious as a child, I guess, where I just didn't care.
I got to figure out if I can wear jeans or shorts.
Is it my galoshes today or my Jordans?
You can call the meteorologist would read you the weather for
today. That's pretty exciting. So, all right. Well, what do you think, Penny? You got?
It's great.
It's great. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll be back 2 weeks from now, I'm sure, with another one. And yeah, we love you, and you're our neighbors, and let's just
don't call me.
Don't.